Welcome to Hoedown History, where we dig deep into the history of America's old-time and bluegrass tunes.
Every now and then a tune comes along that sticks. Not because it's fancy or complicated, but because it just feels like it's always been there. And that's kind of the story of Old Joe Clark. Now, nobody can tell you exactly when it first showed up. Like most good old-time songs, it kind of drifted in slowly. Most folks figure it was floating around the Appalachian Mountains by the mid-1800s, passed from porch to porch, fiddler to fiddler. Kind of tune you learn by ear long before anyone bothered to write it down. And, well, Old Joe Clark himself, that's where things get fun. Joseph Clark came into the world in Clay County, Kentucky, September 18th, 1839. Life moved fast in those mountains, and at just 17, Joe married 15-year-old Elizabeth Sandlin. By the time he was 22, he was already a husband, father of 3, standing in line to enlist when the Civil War broke out. Now, old Joe didn't turn out to be much of a soldier. The first winter wore him down, and by 1862, he was discharged for illness and headed back home. Back to the hills, the farm, and the only life he knew. A few years later, in 1868, Joe bought 700 acres from his father and settled into a log house on Sexton's Creek, a home built by his ancestor. Sounds peaceful enough, but that's about when Joe started building the reputation that would follow him for the rest of his days. Things at home weren't exactly calm. By 1864, his wife, Betty, had had enough. She packed up and left, and Joe, well, he didn't seem too bothered. Free from marriage, he kept company with more than a few women. And kids? Oh, he had plenty. Folks say keeping track of old Joe's offspring was about as easy as counting fireflies on a summer night. And that brings us to the verses. All those hundreds of lines people still sing. Ever wonder why there's so many? Well, Joe's friends took note of his wild behavior and started making little rhymes about it. They fit those verses to a popular breakdown tune of the time. And just like that, the ballad of Old Joe Clark was born.
I went down to old Joe Clark, the old fellow wasn't at home. I ate everything the old man had and gave his dog a bone. By the well, old Joe Clark, goodbye, Betsy.
At first, Joe got a laugh out of this, but as the songs got a little more colorful, stories embellished, or maybe not, he wasn't always amused. Then again, he didn't do much to help his reputation either. When farming didn't pan out, Joe opened a store near his house, and right behind it, he ran a licensed moonshine still, brewing whiskey, brandy, and anything that kept the locals warm and the stories flowing. You can bet some legendary moments happened inside that little store of his. Joe also had a fiery side, and trouble had a habit of finding him. He had a neighbor he just couldn't get along with. Bad blood that boiled hotter every year. One argument got so heated, Joe pulled a gun and shot the man's arm clean off. But karma didn't forget him. In another fight, Joe took a knife to the shoulder and lost the use of his own arm. Fights like that, people say they were practically routine for him. And in the end, it all caught up. In 1886, old Joe Clark was shot and killed on his own back porch. Legend says he's buried in the Clark family cemetery facing Sexton Creek, watching over the land where he raised Cain, raised kids, and raised enough stories to fill a song with verses for generations. So when you hear that lively fiddle tune, think of the man behind it. Wild, flawed, unpredictable, but unforgettable all the same.
If you guys want to see any more videos of old-time and bluegrass music history, please feel free to add that in the comments below.